You're good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, good afternoon. Hate to stop all the conversation, but we've got a forum to get to. Good afternoon once again, and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club on this Wednesday at noon in March. First Wednesday in March, good to have you with us. Happy Ash Wednesday as well. I want to welcome you once again to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. For those who don't know, CMC connects people and ideas through community conversations at forums just like the one you're here today, and this one every Wednesday, almost really nearly every week. I am Matt Barnes. I am the morning co-anchor of NBC4 today, proud to serve as a member of the CMC Board of Trustees, and even happier to be here with you. For those of us joining us by live stream, welcome as well. We're coming to you from the View Columbus in the Brewery District, and it's good to be here. If you scan the QR codes at your tables, you'll learn more about today's forum. You can also take a short survey, as well as see all the many organizations that support CMC, your not-for-profit CMC, so we will always take your donations, if you know what I mean. You also might not know this, but Mary Lazarus, one of the original 13 women founders of CMC, who is still giving to CMC each and every day, helps sponsor today's forum. Mary, can you just give a quick wave so we can all thank you? You talk about one of the pioneering women in Columbus right there. There's one of them. So thank you so much, Mary, for being here and for your continued support of the CMC. Again, the Mary Lazarus Legacy and Civic Engagement Fund is one of today's sponsors, as well as J.P. Morgan Chase. We want to thank them, as well as also today's forum partner, the Women's Fund of Central Ohio. Also, our presenting sponsor of the live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream partner in the Columbus Dispatch. And of course, we're grateful to the View Columbus for hosting us once again. We had to get the bigger venue for a forum like this, which we love. Every CMC forum does take a village. So if you don't mind, one big round of applause for all of our sponsors for today's forum. If it seems like I'm talking fast, it is, because I want to get to this. Today's forum is Women's Wealth is Central Ohio's Growth. And to help introduce our panelists, please welcome Becky Griffin with today's sponsor, J.P. Morgan Chase. Becky?
Good afternoon. So excited to be here with you. Like Matt just said, I'm Becky Griffin, and I'm with J.P. Morgan Chase. I'm super excited to be able to be here and let you know some great things on the panel today. I am the new location leader for J.P. Morgan Chase here in the Columbus market, and as many of you know, my colleague Corrine Berger, I feel like everyone I've met in Columbus knows Corrine. She announced her retirement after 34 incredible years with our firm, and her dedication and leadership have really significantly had an impact not only on our company, J.P. Morgan Chase, but also here in the city of Columbus. I'm really proud to step into this role and be with you here today to kick off this really important conversation. As one of the world's leading financial institution and one of Central Ohio's largest employers, J.P. Morgan Chase has really long focused on empowerment of and advancement of women. In fact, I serve as the executive sponsor of a business resource group we have called Women on the Move, and I'm really proud to serve in that capacity. That initiative aims at helping women achieve financial well-being, grow their skills, and advancing their careers. We support women-run businesses, we help improve women's financial health, and we lift up the women and the girls in our community. This is not only the right thing to do, it's really good for business. Women are projected to control 2/3 of discretionary spending by 2028. I don't know about you all, but I'm making my dent in that one. And while we contribute significantly to the economy, far too many women face additional barriers when trying to build economic security for themselves and for their families. That's why JP Morgan Chase has supported this research that we're going to hear about today. It uncovers data that's highlighting the barriers and opportunities for women's economic prosperity in this region. Our hope is that this will provide our community with a strong foundation to design and implement sustainable and effective solutions. We know that when women prosper, we all prosper. When women prosper, our communities prosper. And when women prosper, our economy prospers. So with that in mind, please join me in welcoming our panelists. Alex Dorman, a research fellow at the Center for Community Solutions. Alex. Keena Smith, CEO of the Women's Center for Economic Opportunity. Shannon Isom, President and CEO of the Community Shelter Board. Lisa Gray, President of Ohio Excels. And lastly, my colleague and our moderator, Courtney Filato, Vice President, Program Officer of Global Philanthropy at JP Morgan Chase. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Becky. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Before we start, a couple thank yous and shout outs to the people who made this report possible. I want to shout out to the entire Women's Fund team. We have Kelly, Kelsey, Maddie, Drew, Monique, Kenny. The report's amazing. I can't wait for you all to see it. That's what we will be discussing today. Also, big shout out to Daphne McKinney, the Columbus Foundation, our friends at the Center for Community Solutions. The work that you're going to be hearing about today and that will be launched later this afternoon is significant, and it took a village. And so a quick round of applause for everybody who was part of that. All right, the report is called Making Women Wealthy and Free, Uncovering the Data About What Central Ohio Women Need to Thrive. To kick off this panel, I'm going to start with the first paragraph from the executive summary because it's so amazing. So I can't wait for you all to read it. Moving beyond survival and stability and toward a life of financial abundance is not just about money or income. It is about creating a life with greater autonomy, opportunity, and purpose. This report outlines the factors that lead women in Central Ohio to build wealth, the conditions that prevent wealth building, and the results of having wealth. The research does not prescribe exact pathways of how to make women feel like they are thriving or how to be financially abundant. It highlights how key outcomes are deeply interconnected. Belief and ability to build wealth differs by levels of thriving, which is correlated with psychological relationships to financial scarcity, which is correlated to invisible emotional load. This research demonstrates that outcomes are worst for women who are surviving, significantly better for women who are stable, and consistently best for women who are financially abundant. Are you ready for this? Yeah, we are. All right, kicking it off. We'll start with you, Alex. You and the whole CCS team were a vital part of the data collection process from the start. Can you share a little bit about what this research looked like behind the scenes and what made it unique?
Yeah, can everyone hear me all right? Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex. I'm a research fellow at the Center for Community Solutions, and I'm just one representative of a small but mighty team at Community Solutions that was all hands on deck for this project. And what a cool opportunity to have the chance to create data that does not exist elsewhere and has never existed before for this region. And I think what really made this research particularly unique was our fantastic collaboration with the Women's Fund, who were active participants at every step of the way and afforded us both the resources but also the freedom to be a little creative to do this work right. And I think a great example of what that looked like is Community Solutions really prioritizes qualitative data, making sure that we can hear stories and exactly the words from the people that we're talking to. And we had the resources to be able to work with trusted community partners to uplift the voices of women that are often excluded in these kinds of research efforts. We were able to compensate them for their time. We were able to provide fully catered meals from local caterers. We were able to make them feel valued for giving us this amazing information. We were able to offer childcare if that was going to be a barrier to participating in these groups. And it's the right thing to do, but also selfishly from a data perspective, it also just makes for better data collection. When your participants feel like they are valued, they're way more likely to engage and open up and share their stories with you. So a little behind the scenes of how it all happened, we heard from over 3,000 women in a survey that we sent out throughout the region. We heard from 126 women across a bunch of focus groups that we did. And one of the guiding principles of this research was prioritize women's voices and believe what they have to tell you, right? But it was kind of a conundrum. We were trying to measure something that's hard to define. We were trying to measure wealth. But wealth means a ton of different things to a ton of different people. And we wanted to make sure that we weren't prescribing our ideas of what wealth is until we had first heard from the women that we wanted to hear from. And what that looked like in application was 8 hours of 10 of us on the research team and anyone who was related to the data sitting in a room together, looking over, immersing ourselves in the data, these 3,000 responses, these 126 participants from the focus groups. And we covered the walls in paper, and we had 1 million Sharpies lying around. And as we each took turns kind of sharing some of these preliminary findings, we went up, we started writing down ideas, we started writing things that we were hearing, some common themes, but we also wrote down some threads we wanted to pull, some ideas that came up from some of these preliminary findings. And then when we had a wall of text, we then took all that information and condensed it down into themes, right? And those themes specifically were about how do women in this region define wealth? And we took those themes and directly used them to structure our report in this final product so that we weren't imposing our definition of wealth on this process. And some of those themes included things like belonging and community, mentorship, health, security, right? And of course, finances. Financial security, of course, is a part of this as well. I'm sure there's others, but you'll have to read the report for all of those.
Alex, can you give us one or two findings that surprised you?
Yes, and thank you so much. I will talk for hours.
No,
Thank
that's
you
what I'm here for.
stopping.
I'm here for it, Alex. Keep going.
Yeah.
One or two findings.
Yes, when we asked over 600 questions, isolating one thing that was interesting is hard to do. But something that I thought was particularly surprising, or maybe not surprising, but really challenges pervasive narratives. We hear so often that one of the pathways to building wealth is through employment, right? So we were able to look at this sample of women, and a lot of the analysis we did was grouping women into women who felt like they were financially abundant and women who didn't. And that wasn't based on income. Instead, it was based on a perception of, I have enough right now to feel secure, or I could use extra right now. So it was more perception-based. And when you look at these two different groups of women, I wanted to know, what are their experiences with employment? And right off the bat, they're working at almost exactly the same rate. There is no difference in amount of effort or that there was no difference. If anything, the women who were less financially abundant were way more likely to be working multiple jobs. So we weren't measuring effort, but if we were, there's an argument to be made there that the women who were less financially secure were in fact working even harder than the women who were more financially secure. But where there were pervasive and stark differences was in the quality of the jobs that the less financially secure women had access to that we're currently working in. And I would just, feeling replaceable, feeling disrespected at work, having an inflexible work schedule, not feeling like you were earning enough, not having adequate health care, those were all much worse for the women who were less financially stable. And I think that's an important finding because maybe it's not necessarily surprising, but it certainly challenges common narratives out there about wealth being a matter of effort.
Yeah, that's great. Keena, let's go to you. The Women's Center for Economic Opportunity hosted one of the focus groups for this research project. What are some of the themes that emerge from the women in our community authentically sharing their lived experiences in Central Ohio?
Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate the question. First, I'd like to thank the Columbus Metropolitan Club for having me and thanking the Women's Fund for doing this work. Thank you to Chase for supporting it. I definitely have to say hello to all of my board members. Thank you for being here. And if I may, this AKA would like to give a shout out to the fabulous the fabulous ladies of Delta Sigma Theta, who are in the house.
Yes, we appreciate
We
you.
appreciate you.
We
We see you. Absolutely. We love that. So, to themes. To themes. So first, let me talk a little bit about the demographic that was in the room so you give you a little context. So we had about 15 lively and robust and smart African-American women who, to piggyback kind of on what Alex said, were entrepreneurs. They were wage earners, employers, careerists, as we like to call them, and some of them were both. So having a business and working a job, when we talk about that mental load that can be on women, was evident in our group. And they were sandwiched. They're sandwich generation, right? So they are caring for children. They are caring for aging parents. Many of them are doing it as single parents. And so they have a lot on them. But let me tell you, yes, financial security as well as self-sufficiency was a theme in our conversation. So by way of insight, yes, income is important, but also asset building. And so to my left here is a woman who talks so much about the importance of affordable housing. And so this group of women definitely recognize the importance of home ownership and how that can help them build financial security and self-sufficiency. Now, one of the things that you may not realize is that when it comes to lifespan, African American women are only surpassed in lifespan by European American women. Now, there may only be a few years between them as far as lifespan is concerned, but there is a world of difference in how we move through the world and how we are treated in this country. And so financial security and self-sufficiency is super important to these women as they are wanting their children. They want to look out for their parents who probably don't have enough, in retirement. And so they're looking to them for support, financial support. And then they have their children. And then they have college. And then they have their financial debt as well, right? So they're sandwiched between, I know the simple definition is between children and aging parents, but these ladies are like a daggone sub sandwich or something, right? It's stacked. Triple stacked,
Club
okay?
sandwich, yeah.
So, and we can get into, all the terminology. Alice, I call them single income. If you heard of double income, no kids, they are single income with kids. Yeah. So financial security is super, super important to them. The next theme that came about was support systems. Not only what you might think of as the normal support systems as far as your friends and your family, a good bank. And by the way, I will say that from other research we've done, credit unions need to stand up and take a hand. They get a lot more credit than commercial banks do, but we'll talk about that some other day. Sorry, Court. Courtney, that's why I don't get invited to these things that often,
You got to stay on script, Keena. You're about to get cut off. I'm going to shut your mic down.
Okay, let me regroup.
Get back.
Get back on track. Get back on track, right? But it includes tools and resources, right? And they want equitable access to the tools and resources that others get. They want financial education, not financial literacy. Financial literacy is something that rubs them the wrong way. just by way of insight. They want information about investments. They want information about cryptocurrency, right? They have disposable income and they want to be respected for that. You know, and yes, we did talk about systemic barriers and obstacles, but they did not want to spend a whole lot of time talking about dismantling something that they did not build. They don't want to talk about spend a whole bunch of time talking about fixing something they did not break. They want to talk about, they have hope, they are resilient, they have faith, they believe in themselves, and all they're saying is give us the tools that everybody else has, and we will rock this thing, okay? Which I would say there are many of them that are already doing that. So financial security, self-sufficiency, support systems, yes, they care about the barriers, but they're leaving that to saying, we are resting now, and so fix your stuff, y'all.
Thank you, Keena. So you mentioned housing. Let's go to Shannon. So Shannon, in Franklin County, 1 in 5 homeowners live in unaffordable housing or housing that costs more than 30% of their monthly income. The ever-increasing cost of owning a home is a barrier to financial stability and to building wealth for women in our region. What can we do in Central Ohio specifically to make sure more women and their families can buy a home, which is a major source of wealth building in the U.S.?
I'm not going to go through the whole litany of thank you, so can I just ditto what you said? Thank you for everyone.
Yes.
Thank you for the invite. I was worried I wasn't going to be invited back because I acted up the first time.
She did.
So
I was there.
Thank you, whoever invited me back.
It's good trouble.
I did warn everyone I'm going to act up this time too, so I'm probably not going to be invited back for another 18 months. But let me first start off by saying a couple of things. You know, I must acknowledge that we are at Ash Wednesday, so just acknowledging those people of faith that are in the room that are moving through a time of sacrifice and reflection, and doing that with you, and I want to honor that. The second is that we are also in women's, is it Women's Health Month? It's Women's Empowerment Month. We're in Women's Month, okay? We're in the Women's Month. And so let me also acknowledge immediately that the first thing that should come to your mind when we're talking about women in the month of March is payday, equal payday. If you haven't heard of it before, look it up, Google it, but I'll really quickly say to you that we've lost 13 days, ladies. Last year, our equal pay day was March 12th. This year, it's March 25th. Let me make sure this is on. Right. And then when you disaggregate the data, what you will find is that our equal pay day is the way that it is scaled when 86% of the women reach that same pay that white men made last year. So when I look up to see where we're at with Asian women who hit it before white women, then white women, and then Hispanic women, and then black women, and then Native American women, and it goes on. It says it's to be determined. We don't know yet in 2025. You see, because the scale continues to move depending. Before I answer the question of what women need to do more of, I need to talk to you about how the system is scaled. And it is scaled upon, now white men, I'm gonna call y'all out from time to time, don't get mad. But it is scaled on that. And all women are then scaled based on what men made, what men do, what men have access to, and then you become reflective of that centering. It is imperative that women, and I'm speaking only to women, that we must center on the margins. The last group of women to make equal pay are Native American women. Now, when was the last time you thought about the sisters of indigenous population? They make equal pay day. Last year, they made as much as a white male made. November 21st. Took a whole year. Black women, we're at July 27th, and we've been holding pretty steady to that. Even amongst us obtaining more degrees than anyone in this entire country, here we are. So it's hard for me to say to women what to do more of. You see, the question in itself makes the wrong assumptions. Like, there's more emotional, social, education, hard work that you must do to catch up. Not true. The system must be disrupted and broken. It must be. Now, some of you might say, well, we're already doing that, right? We have a president that's disrupting. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yeah. We are black women specifically. We are the laggers of home ownership. Where I see it the most is in my homeless shelter system. We have 9 shelters across the region that we run, that we fund. And in that, what you will find are some very, very stark numbers. The first is that when you look at who is head of household in our family shelters, what you'll find is that black women are 92% of head of households in our shelters. And so this isn't probably anything that is new to us. The number one way to move into poverty is to be a single mother. Number one way to move into poverty is to be a single mother. Black women are in single motherhood more than anyone else. So goes our family shelters. The average children that follow moms, about 3.3 children, so goes generational poverty. Then when I break it out and look at how many in our women's shelters, so goes black women, more than any other. Single men, black men. Here's the kicker. The shelter system is an adult shelter system, and people ask me many times, where do the kids go and what is your responsibility to kids? Kids follow parents. But if you are a youth child that's on their own, you're in the foster care system until you're not. And when you're not, you're about 18. And so we've carved out this 18 to 24-year-old to say, okay, well, where's youth homelessness? Well, we fund that. And when you look at youth homelessness, what you'll find is that most of the young adults that are in homeless shelters are women, are girls. You disaggregate that based on race, it's upwards of 80% are black girls. And you'll say, okay, well, where are all the boys? Where are they at? Yeah, they're in jail. Or they're surfing. Or they're under bridges. But women, we are in the shelter system because it's dangerous out there. Okay, so then we start talking about other things of why housing is important. Housing is important also for safety because there's violence that's perpetuated in gender-based violence. And in fact, when you look at gender-based violence, and especially when you don't have housing, women, we die. Black women, we die in gender violence. This is stark. But I must talk to you that this isn't about how do we build wealth? This is about safety, belonging, security, family. No offense to the research, but black women, you already knew this. It's been passed down. You have to. You must be safe. We already knew. What can we do here? Well, the first thing I always say that we should do is stop doing programming and let's do some policy and legislation. Can we do that? Can we make sure that we have an increased home ownership here within the region? We are lagging behind. Black women specifically are lagging behind. The overall country of home ownership, when it comes to women, is pretty steadily gone up. And for black folk and black women too. Black women, we do better than black men. But here, when I disaggregate the data here, 40% across the country home ownership. Here, black women, we're at a 32%. We're at the numbers of the 1950s. It's decreasing. We have an issue here. My last thing that I will state is that, because I think my 2 minutes is up, Courtney.
But keep fit. One last point for Shannon.
I'm going to say one last thing, is that Courtney started off by saying, when women do well, the country does well. And I will tell you, I'm talking to women only. Women, when black women do better, all women do better.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Shannon. All right, Lisa.
Let me just ask.
Yes.
Whose idea was it for me to go after Shannon?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I actually thought that. I was like, Lisa's going to be so mad at me later.
I kind of want to run out the door.
Actually, she was listed first before Shannon on my little notes, but I'll deal with that later. So, Lisa, to pivot, but not really. So, Lisa, we know that when women are able to thrive financially, our region's economy benefits. One issue that came up as a barrier to wealth is the high cost of childcare. In Franklin County, the estimated cost of infant-centered based child care was $14,996 per year, nearly 42% of the median income for single mothers in Franklin County. What can we do to help ease these costs for women, especially low-income single mothers who often cannot afford to pay child care costs and cover other household expenses?
Thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. I also want to note for the Chase people here, I am wearing Chase blue for you. And while I don't have any sorority sisters here, I would like to call out one of my board members, Fabian Padamadan. So that's a great question, and I was pleased because when Shannon mentioned policies and legislation, I was like, okay, I do have a spot here. So the work that Ohio Excels does is really around education. It's about building that pipeline from early child to K-12 to higher ed to make sure that more Ohioans, girls and boys, are ready to succeed in the world. But specifically around child care, it is not a system the way we think of K-12. It is not funded the way K-12 is funded. It's not even funded the way higher ed is funded. And so really to tackle some of these issues, we have to be focusing on the policy. So right now, many of you probably know we're in the middle of the biennial budget. We have a governor that has been trying to move the needle on supporting childcare for the last 6 years of his administration. He has not necessarily had the cooperation from some other policy leaders in the state. And so we need stronger state policies. And what does that look like? That looks like tax credits for families. That looks like moving, so for a family to qualify for publicly funded childcare, right now you have to be at 145% of the federal poverty level. Until we added a child care voucher last April, we were dead last in the country in terms of what we do to support families, especially our low-income families, around childcare. There is a proposal in the budget to go from 145 to 160. That's great. We would like to see it to go to 200% of the federal poverty level. That would still keep us at the bottom, but not at the very bottom. So those are some of the policies. We're in the middle of the budget right now. If you're not engaging, please engage. We have to have more voices telling our policymakers that this matters, not just to women. It matters to families, it matters for the economy, and it matters for our kids. The other thing that this budget would do, so Courtney referenced that some families are paying up to 42% of their income for childcare. I think we could all say that most of us could not afford that. This budget would cap the child care costs for low-income families at 7%. That would give them about an extra $8 an hour in wages. So again, reach out to your legislators. If you have relationships, tell them this matters to you. The other thing that I would say is, you know, the state sometimes funds what they call part-time slots for kids, and that's great, but what we know families need and what women need is full-time. You know, a part-time slot is great, for a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home father that is bringing their child to preschool. But that's really not what we need in this state. We need full-time funded slots, and there is a move in this budget to do more of that. Again, reach out. So that's what I would say to start with.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Before we get to our last question, it's CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions from both our in-person audience and live stream. So if you have a question in person, please, Chase, the entire Chase table should clear out. The microphone's over there. Please make your way to the microphone, or if you're joining by YouTube, please type your questions into the chat, and Doug is going to be curating them. So with that, while everyone is running towards the microphone, anybody, run to the microphone. We need some questions. We're going to ask one more question in the audience, and I love all the speeches that have been said today. We are going to keep this last question to no more than 2 sentences. Did you hear that, Shannon? All right. So, knowing what this work is about, this research and this report, I want to ask you each, how do you see yourself in this work? And what personal barriers or accelerators have you encountered when trying to build wealth for yourself and your family? I'll actually give you 3 sentences.
Can I go before Shannon?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Shannon's going to pick up the rear on this one. Lisa, you can start.
Am I starting?
Yes, you're starting.
Okay, so, I think that anybody that has been a working parent, but particularly a working woman, faces barriers. I am way older than most of you in this room. I did not have, except for the woman shaking her head. Thank you. When I had my kids, I did not have a paid maternity leave. I did get to keep my job. However, my boss at the time was insistent that I would not give birth early because it was my first child. So the day that I came home from the hospital, we scheduled a conference call so that I could talk about what needed to be done at work. My husband had no paternity leave. We don't have family in Columbus. I mean, we were sent home from the hospital with this baby. We had no idea what we were doing. My husband was like, hey, good luck. I'm going back to work. I was like, baby sleep. I've got to get on a conference call. And so, I think that has been probably the biggest barrier. But the one thing that I would say is, as women and men who have experienced this, and people who know me, I very often give my husband props, and I'm going to ask you to cut this in case he watches. But I think he treats his employees, and I hope I do better, giving them more flexible time, understanding the challenges, knowing that if your kid has a sporting event at 5:30, leave early. That helps build our children. But as women, I think we can't look at other women and say, well, I didn't get that. What we should say is, I didn't get that, and I'm going to make damn sure you're getting it.
That's right. I love that. Thank you, Lisa. Love that. All right, Keena, you're up next. And Lisa didn't abide by the 3-sentence rule. But, Shannon, that's why you're at the end. So sit there. All right. Keena?
I'm just going to piggyback on what Lisa said, absolutely. And, I see myself as being all the things. As an African-American woman, as someone who is an advocate for all women of color, for equity, for economic justice, economic inclusion. It is not an easy road, and most people don't want to hear it. That's just the bottom line. But as I like to say, George Floyd is still dead. He is still dead. And everything that we felt on the next day and the day after and the day after, he did not rise up on election day to say everything is okay. Everything that we felt and went through on that day we still feel, and all of the things that we tried to write during that period of time still need to be righted, if I can use that word. And I know I'm over 3 sentences as well, but let me just leave you with one other word, and that's courage. We, as a community, must be courageous. We get awards for being smart. We're a wonderfully smart city. I would love to see us be a wonderfully courageous city as well.
Love that. I love that. I love that. Alex, you're up next. Hold on, Shannon. I know you're ready. Alex?
I promise.
No, you just take your 3 sentences. Yeah.
I think there's an uncomfortable truth in a report that focuses on the experiences of women in their lives, in their workplaces, in their families, where I am indirectly in that report everywhere. So much of what women are experiencing and what we learned about in the data is a direct result of the ways in which this system benefits me. My qualifications are never questioned in the workplace. I've never been denied employment opportunities because of my gender, right? You'd have to be pretty uncritical in your reading of this report as a man to not see how your presence in this system does not impact the women in this report.
Thank you, Alex. All right, Shannon.
That's perfect, me coming from Alex, because I was going to say that everything about this report is I see the work in which marginalized women have built. One of the things that as I was listening to our president's speech yesterday and then the rebuttal, was that the statement was, it is easy for us not to do anything. We must move because it's easy for us to be exhausted. What I see in this report is the direct opposite. I'm going to ask women, you must build coalition. You must move and be activated right now because things are changing. For Black women specifically who are exhausted, it's not easy to be exhausted. It's not easy to rest. In the resting, there's movement. So I'm going to ask, as people are building coalitions, women, Black women specifically, who said they're going to rest, rest. Because even in the resting, what happens is that you synthesize information. You strategize. You know where your strengths are. You can call people in. And in that dual coalition, that it is imperative that we demand differently from the system. Okay, coalition and rest.
All right. Doug, take it away.
Courtney, thank you very much, and thank you to today's panelists. Great conversation. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join us here at the microphone. We'll try to get to as many as we can. If you're watching online, type your questions into the chat, and I'll do my best to curate them. Great questions at CMC always have 2 things in common, right? They take less than 30 seconds to ask, and what punctuation mark does a question end with? It ends with a question mark. That's right. Our repeat guest. Thank you all. I'll launch us off with this one. Women-owned businesses, women-led nonprofits, and women-centered nonprofits receive less funding than their male counterparts. What are tangible ways that local investors, banks, and policymakers can ensure women-led startups, small businesses, and organizations have equal access to capital?
Is there another funder on this panel? One of you guys want to take that? Lisa, no? All right, that's an awesome question. It's a complicated question, but it's an awesome question. So I remember joining JP Morgan Chase 5 years ago, and at the time, it was March 2020. The world fell out across everything. And, I started diving in, someone who'd never been a funder before in my life. I'd spent my entire career getting grants, not giving them. And really to understand the history of grant making, the history of funding, and less than 1% of philanthropic dollars go to organizations led by people of color, and less than 0.5% of that go to organizations led by women of color. I think there has to be the recognition of an intentionality, right? We have amazing organizations in this town. We are so lucky to have organizations of this town with lots of diverse leadership, and we need to be very intentional in seeking them out, understanding their work, and supporting them, right? And supporting them isn't a blip. Supporting them, candidly cannot be in perpetuity, but supporting them is about seeking them out, figuring out what they need, and leaning in. And this is something that I know JP Morgan Chase has been very intentional about. A lot of the other funders in this room, our friends at the Columbus Foundation and many of the other corporate foundations have been intentional. We can be more intentional. I also want to offer up our friends at the Women's Fund who do this every single day. They are out there looking for these organizations and finding that catalytic capital and also that partnership. It's not just about money. It's about walking alongside these leaders and supporting them in the ways that aren't financial. So while there has been more of that, we need even more. And so that's how I would answer that question. Please, yeah.
So I think one of the other things that's really important is for those of us that do fundraising is to help our friends. It's not all about the money we get. Ohio Excels cannot do this work by itself. We need everybody else doing what they do. And so if you have a great relationship with a funder and you know a group that might be aligned, make those introductions. I think sometimes in this space we have a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, I'm not going to share my funder because that means I might get less. I've actually found that when we introduce and we make those connections, we're actually doing better, not worse financially.
Next question, Emily.
Hello, thank you so much. This is such a fantastic presentation, and I love the voices that are at the front of the room talking about this. I'm Emily Shriver. I'm the CEO of the Matriots, and we work to get women engaged in politics and elevate their political voice. And so my question for you all today, as I'm looking at this report and learning about the gap in wealth for women, is how do we motivate that wealth and turn, if we're able to get more wealth, how do we enable more women to participate in politics using that wealth? We're having a conversation next week on Tuesday with the Matriots over at the Ellis, talking a little bit about this, but I would love to have your perspective on if we have $500 more a month, how can we use that to, as Alex said, prioritize women's voices and start to believe what women tell us? And then also I wrote down, how do we access this report?
The report's online. We will make sure that the link is sent out in public. Oh, it's on the table. There you go. Go to the website. But great question. Lisa, anybody?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So while I think money matters, what matters more is your voice and your presence. So, if you do have extra money that you can give to a candidate or somebody that believes what you believe, or if you're giving it to, a campaign that is trying to get something done. But I think, so I'm not going to say money doesn't matter in politics, because I think we all know that it does. And so we have to pay attention to that side of it. But I think we also have to pay attention to the other side of it, which is we have to be in the faces of our policymakers. We have to be showing up when there are hearings. The budget is going on, as I said. I'm like a broken record because we're spending all our time at the state capitol right now. But showing up, sharing your voices, don't be silent. When I go to the State House, I see the same group of lobbyists and policy leaders, and I'll throw myself into that. They probably don't like seeing me either. But, we need other people and other voices, and our policy makers, especially members of our General Assembly, want to hear from their representatives. So if you can look up who your policymaker is, make a call, send a letter, schedule a meeting, do that. It's not as scary as you might think.
Yeah, I would recommend that everybody go online, local, state, federal, know who they are, and send your thoughts as often as you'd like. Shannon.
As a general thing, I will say, being in this community for a couple of years, and this is probably going to be an ouch, I think it's really important to have space to tell the truth. One of the things I have heard more than anything that I've heard since I've been here are folks trying to manage my message, my voice. And that's not just with me, I think it's with anything. There must be some truth tellers out there. I don't know how this thing is going to happen if, not that speak up, it's easy to speak up, but it's hard to tell the truth when people are signaling you, cueing you, women included, that you must not say that. Listen, speaking up is one thing, telling the truth is another. And I said to a sister here, if I say something, will you have my back? It's that serious. It's that serious here. There is a disparity here when it comes to race and class and gender. And when you intersect those, it's not speaking up anymore. It's not coming to this and having a lunch. If you don't know anyone or interact with anyone that is any different from you, there's a problem. If you are doing more mentoring than sponsoring, there's a problem. There's a problem. I love matriots. I love them. I give to them personally. But I will tell you that I'm not sure if just having more women in politics is going to change things. There must be more women in politics that are truth tellers and that we hold them accountable and we have their back. And if that means women, that we must put our money aside separately, secretly, covertly to make it happen, then let's do it. But shutting us up must stop. Speaking personally.
This is a good one. Keena, yes, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna take this big risk, and I'm gonna add, if you're doing more convening than contracting with women-owned businesses, that's got to change. That's got to change. We need contracts. We need connections. We need capital. All of those things. And I got a couple people, I need everybody in here to be clapping for that, because that means that you don't have contracts with women-owned businesses. We see you, right? You want to convene and sit around the table and speak up. We need for you to start signing some papers and signing some contracts and looking at your supplier diversity, because we're not allowed to say that anymore.
Doug, thank you, Keena.
We have about 3 minutes left for, I hope, one final question.
Hello, I feel a bit nervous because I'm the last question, but I'm glad I am because I have quite an overarching question rather than anything in particular to any subset of what was discussed. I am just a young voice, a young face. I don't belong to any organizations. I'm 20 years old and just have felt enamored to be able to take witness to all the things that were discussed today. I have an immigrant mother, both immigrant parents, but my mother's a single mother. As you know, things like that do happen. And since 15 years old, I've worked vigorously to support her, taking up my own forms of employment and whatnot. And so this question is particularly for African American young women. I think it's very easy for young voices to feel as though they are stifled and that it is permitted for them to be railroaded and that they don't have a place to speak because they don't know enough or, don't be in grown folks' business and things of that nature. So my question is pertaining to how can young women, though particularly African American women, form both workable and resilient structured pathways to bridging the rather multifaceted obstacles to obtaining better support systems, community outreaches, and championing our own capabilities.
First of all, thank you for having the courage to come up to the mic and ask the question. We very much appreciate it. Please come back more often and become an active participant right here in this room, and bring your friends. I think that is part of the first thing that we can do is to, as Shannon said, build coalitions and then show up, speak up, and it doesn't go together, but tell us what it is that you need and that you want, and hold us accountable for following through for you. So please call me, email me, and let's talk about it more because we would love to help.
Thank you for the question. Immediately, when I'm thinking about questions and the responsibility that many of us put on trying to figure out how to show up more and better, which I think is what women do, and especially when you are a woman of color, and especially if you're a black woman, I'm going to change the answer to the question of what else could you do. I think what I'm going to say is I think that responsibility falls on our generation, and we haven't done well with that. So not only am I calling out my sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, but also our Deltas and our church family, that we should be embracing our young people better. So I'm going to take that as not a question, but a calling out, which is also part of our culture. Respectfully, you called out to the grown folk that we've dropped the ball. And we'll confer, and let's do better.
All right, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you to this panel. It was a lively conversation. I expected nothing less. We're gonna welcome back Matt to close us out. So thank you guys very much.
Well, that was passionate. As I expected it to be. I mean, this is such an important topic in this city that I know is so passionate about helping women and helping women thrive, but also knowing the work we need to do. I'm so glad we had this panel to guide us through that conversation. And just because it's only an hour and we're done here doesn't mean we're done talking, right? So let's keep the conversation going, please, as we think about what we heard today. I want to thank once again our forum sponsors. We can't do this without you. The Mary Lazarus Legacy and Civic Engagement Fund and JP Morgan Chase. Big round of applause. Thank you so much. Again, our forum partner, the Women's Fund of Central Ohio, thank you for all that you do, and the View Columbus for hosting us. Grateful again to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream and promotional partners, the Columbus Dispatch, and a very, very special appreciation to our speakers, Keena Smith, Shannon Isom, Lisa Gray, Alex Dorman, and our host, Courtney Falado. One more round of applause for them. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to run through a wall. I don't know what exactly yet, but I'll run through it for anything that I heard today. I feel like there's so much more we need to be doing. But again, if you need to get to that report, it is right there, the QR code. You can download the entire report right there, see the executive summary, all of that. So take this with you so that not just that you can download it, so other people can download it and read all the good work that's been done in that report and what needs to be done here in Central Ohio. And hey, make plans to be with us again next Wednesday and every Wednesday, but we're back at the Ellis in Italian Village next week to talk about the state of the performing arts here in Central Ohio, another fantastic panel of Columbus leaders. On behalf of the CMC, we thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.